You're listening to the Beyond Mommy Dearest podcast, where we talk about growing up with narcissistic moms, how it shapes your nervous system, your relationships, and your sense of self, and how to heal without shame. I'm your host, Nolani Pearl Hernandez. Today's episode is sponsored by plant-powered body care that actually works. Today, I'm joined by Joy, who shares the story of growing up with a narcissistic mom and the moment everything shifted. We're talking about betrayal, guilt, and what really takes place after saying, I'm done. Joy, thank you so much for being here with me today. What you all didn't see is that and I have just talked for 30 minutes before getting started. And Joy actually grew up in the area where I'm located, just like I did. So we had a lot of stuff to catch up on. So I'm just really glad that you're here, and
Thanks
kindred
for having me.
spirits. Yeah, of course. I always talk about the fact that it's horrible that we are meeting on such um, horrible circumstances, but I've met just the best people ever in this survivor or in this healing space. So I'm really glad that you're here with us. Um, you know, I watched your Instagrams, and I was just so enthralled with how honest they were and how raw they were. So I would love for you to tell me like how you got started in talking about your crazy mom.
Well, I would say, I mean, my whole social media venture started, it's been off and on for many years because it's something I love fashion. It's something I always wanted to do, but never really had the confidence to do it. And I was laid off a couple years ago. It's been
Mm-hmm.
years now. And I just thought, you know what? This is my time. I'm going to start talking about what I love. And it just developed into talking about my mom. I was also I experienced a lot of things in the last 4 to 5 months with my mom and
Hmm.
recently went completely no contact with her.
Hmm.
And so I felt like I'm free. I'm free
Hmm.
to talk about it now because I think I always hid it.
Hmm.
Never really wanted to discuss it. And now, because I always, you know what it was, is I was protecting her. I always felt
Right.
like I could protect her. And I thought, you know what? F it, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah.
It's very freeing to feel like
Yeah.
you can actually tell your story now.
It's really interesting that you talk about that protection part. I think for a lot of people, um, when they're still trying to figure out whether they go no contact, whether they're going to be the cycle breaker, that protection part really comes into play because that is like deeply rooted in the abuse from our mothers of, protect at all costs. And you really talk about being a cycle breaker. And
Mhm.
so you have kids too, two lovely boys. And so, what does this really look like for you in real life? Not just like the Instagram version of you breaking the cycle and changing kind of the trajectory with your kids.
It's a lot of hard work. It's a
Hmm.
lot of self-reflection. It's removing your ego and taking
Hmm.
accountability for behaviors you learned from your own mom and
Hmm.
really breaking that cycle. There are things that I regret, raising my sons, not
Hmm.
having emotional control as far as like your, anger, emotionally
Hmm.
regulating. But, now I have those conversations with my sons and I'll say, hey, there were times, like a handful of times where maybe I lost my temper but let's
Hmm.
talk about them and let's heal. I think when my son was born that I realized I have, some anger stuff going on, deep seated. And I said, I'm not going to pass this on to my kids. I'm just not.
Hmm.
So that's when I sought out therapy and really started it wasn't easy. It's still not easy. I think I am proud to say that I've gotten a lot better with emotionally
Hmm.
regulating. And it's very rare that I will get anger. I hate when people yell. There are certain things that
Hmm.
I just
Right. Right.
strong on. But yeah, it's having that getting away from those ego and having those conversations and being aware and apologizing and just trying to heal and say, hey, I wasn't perfect, but I'm here to
Hmm.
be the best mom that I can be.
Right.
So,
And a lot of, one of our guests, we talked about like not having the tools at the
mhm.
time to parent our children. My oldest is 30, and I think that she and I like really have come to this agreement to be like, okay, I know that I'm not the best mom. I am 1,000 times better than my mom was, and I love you, and I always put you first. And when I get triggered or put into that space, I do have to say sorry, right? It's a lot different because you are comfortable and you know your kids really well. And I think that for me personally, when I finally realized that the way that my mom wasn't normal, I was able to parent better. And I think that, you know, I would love to know for you. I've shared mine a couple times and I'll share again in a second, but I would love to know from you when you realize, holy crap, this shit ain't normal and it's actually harming me about your relationship with your mom.
I know that early on, I think when you grow up through it, you don't really know, right? When you're a
Hmm.
kid, you're not going to school talking about, oh, my mom
Right.
you know, locked me outside on the second floor of the apartment complex in my underwear. You don't, those
Yeah.
aren't
Like,
those,
yeah.
those little things like but it wasn't until I was probably in my early 20s, and this
Hmm.
story is so specific because it still, kind of haunts me today, where
Yeah.
I went skiing. I was with my fiance at the time,
Hmm.
and my brother had found us at the ski resort, and it was going to be New Year's, condensing the story a little bit,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he said, "Come home." And at that time, back up for a second. My mom has been married 6 times, so she,
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy. I can't even imagine that. Okay. This
So
is
growing
good.
up
This is the
through
achievement.
that,
All right. Uh-huh.
so it was her fifth marriage that she and I
Okay.
were getting engaged, and so it was the apartment that we had grew up in. And my mom said, "Hey, you're going to be married. Do you want to take it over? Because I'm
Hmm.
moving out." And I was on my own at a very young age, from like 15
Yep.
years old,
Yeah.
taking care of myself. And I said, "Yeah, we'll take it over." And so she's gone. She's married. Well, about 6 months into a year, it didn't work out, and she claimed some things, which I think with a narcissistic mom, sometimes it's you question like, okay, is that because there's been so
Right.
many things where you're not really
Right.
sure if that's real or
Right.
not.
Yeah.
And so she said she needed to come back and stay with us. And we're like, okay, there's an extra room. You can stay with us. Well, I
Hmm.
remember
Hmm.
the very day when I was getting ready to go skiing, she was helping me clean because I like to have things clean when I go on vacation and when I
Yes.
come home.
So when you come home, you're like, oh, yes,
Clean.
I get it. Yeah.
But she was being eerily nice. And I thought, I didn't think about it then, but so we take off. She said, I'll help clean up the rest. You go, you just go, kind of pushing me
Hmm.
out. So we
Right.
go there, we have a good time skiing. My brother finds us. And at the time before my mom had moved in with us, my brother's girlfriend was staying with us for a little while. Well, they
Okay.
find a
Yeah.
ski resort,
Hmm.
and they said, "Hey, it's New Year's. Why don't you stay with us?" And I said, "No, I
Hmm.
have plans with my friends. I really want to go back home and get home."
Right.
And
Right.
they
Right.
kept talking me into it. And he finally goes, "Okay, I'm going to tell you." He said, "I went home and mom basically cleaned you out." So we had some furniture, and she had come in, taken it. And okay, so I'm mentally preparing myself to come home and
Yeah.
see, that she had basically taken our furniture and moved
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Didn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
Um, but I come home and I'm mentally preparing for the drive, and I look in and it looked like we were robbed. Like remember back in
Yeah.
the entertainment centers, those big
Yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah. The deep. Yeah. Yes.
So
We're
she,
aging ourselves, but that's
yeah, I
okay.
know, I know. But so that was completely gone, and all of our stuff was all over the ground. Okay. But but then I went to my room, and my dressers, everything was taken, and all my belongings, our belongings were skewed all over the floor. So premeditated, calculated, trying to get me out of the house, had a whole crew, ready to move and basically steal my stuff. But here's the kicker. This is the kicker with narcissists. She left a note saying, "Thank you for letting me take the furniture."
Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my God.
So that's the very first
Oh
time I
my
was like,
gosh.
this woman, and then, it messes with your head because you're like,
Yeah.
did she say anything? No, there was no conversation. And she's done
Yeah.
this multiple times after,
Oh my
things like
gosh.
to where basically, so to answer your question is when did you know this is not normal? Well, that's basically a crime. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is a
your
crime.
own mom comes in
Jesus.
and steals from you. Like, who does that? You know?
Oh my gosh.
So, um, that was the first time I realized that I can't believe my own mom would do this to me.
That's so crazy. I just totally had a flashback of so first of all, what the fuck? I'm so sorry. Let me let you know, like I see you and that's some fucked up shit. Like I can't even holy crap. And I totally just had a flashback because I had my daughter pretty young, and I used to get her like toys that were really cool. So she loved the Teletubbies. She had this little like purple Tinky Winky that when you pressed its tummy, it like a little thing would come up and you would have to fill the little teacup, and it was super cute. And I was still in contact with my mom at the time, and she brought it with her. My daughter did because it was her favorite. And then, like, as we were leaving my mom's house, it was nowhere to be found. Like, and I thought, well, maybe like when we went out to dinner, you might have left it. And like, my daughter was pretty upset. I said, don't worry about it. We'll get you another one. It's just going to take a little bit. Like, I had to save up money. It was expensive. And later, a little while later, because my daughter also loved Toy Story, she had like the Woody and the Buzz Lightyear she used to carry around. And my daughter said, Grandma took it. Like we were visiting her and she said, Grandma took it. I said, no, Grandma wouldn't take it. And then, like, I said, Mom, did you take her, Buzz Lightyear and her Woody? And she's like, oh, no, I didn't take it. She gave it to me. I'm all, she's 3. She can't give you her toys. Like, come on. And she's like, oh, okay, sorry, I'll get it. And then I found the Teletubby. And I was like, God, I totally remember that. Like it just flashed back because one of the things with trauma is you don't always remember everything.
Yeah.
There's like
Yep.
chunks that you like. And what I've found,
Mhm.
especially like right now when I'm doing these podcasts or I'm having conversations with my clients that are in the narcissistic relationship recovery coaching, is I'll have these flashbacks. During the coaching, I usually don't talk about it, but during the podcast, I do. And that was so crazy. I can't believe that your mom did that. That's fucked up. And that she left a note, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, um, I hate Anthony Scaramucci because he's a douchebag and he's a total dirtbag. But he said one of the best things I ever heard in regards to narcissists. They don't like stab you from the back; they stab you from the front. They make it real clear that they're stabbing you. So, I
Yeah.
God, I want to shake your mom.
Yeah.
You should tell me where she lives. I'm gonna go shake her.
Oh, she's like a couple miles away.
Oh no. I've
Yeah.
probably experienced her. Maybe that's why, like, when I drive by some places, I get a tummy ache. My tummy is my teller. So, a lot of your contacts. And by the way, you have like a real mean, definitive, beautiful side eye. I love it. Like it is a strong side eye because some of your content is really like, you're like, oh, come on, right? And it's really hits on those subtle behaviors and not the extreme abuse. Because I think for people who are experiencing narcissism, or for people who are trying to figure things out, or you're watching the news, it's not always extreme where they leave you a note and say, thank you for all the furniture. Sometimes they're really quiet in the way that they do it. And I would say, especially narcissistic moms and their specific impact on their daughters. Sons are different. We'll have other episodes with that. But can you tell me what are some of the quiet ways that maybe your narcissistic mom or you've seen other narcissistic moms have an impact on their daughters?
Oh yeah. It's there's so many. there's, like you said, that certain things come back, and there's certain things
Hmm.
that will,
Hmm.
will come back because you forget. And there was one thing
Hmm.
the other day that came up, and I told my boyfriend, I'm like, I cannot believe I remembered this, but I don't remember it now.
It's okay. That's perimenopause. That's a
But
whole
yeah,
nother thing.
exactly. It is. But things that just the little nuances, underlying comments, I was
Yep.
having a conversation with my brother, and he's gone no contact with my mom for about 10 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And we were having a conversation, and he helps me remember some things, but we will talk about how, we were talking about our careers. And I had said,
Hmm. Hmm.
I remember being super young and talking to our mom about how I wanted to go into graphic design or fashion. And
Right.
my mom would put it down, and she said, "Oh, that's so competitive. And, you would never make it in that." Well, I never knew this. And I'm 51. And my brother said, "Are you kidding me?" He said, he goes, how I was so into electronics. He's like, and he would take anything apart, anything he would get, he would take it apart, put it back together. And he said,
Hmm.
I told mom that I wanted to be an engineer. And she said, "Oh, engineers, they will never, you're such a nerd. No one's going to."
Your mom
And so he said that completely changed his whole trajectory,
trajectory.
yeah, of his career. And it did with mine as well. And so we were talking about this. We thought, wow, it kind of came together to a full point where we're like, these things that our moms have told us, like with my boys, I'm super encouraging. I will say,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do, whatever you put your mind to, you can become the best at, and
Right.
I think of ideas to help them. But those little things really impact you, the little nuances, my mom, I remember her telling me when I was naked in a bathtub one time that I was fat.
Right.
That has still stuck with me to this
Ugh.
day,
And you're
which,
not, by the way. You are not anywhere near that, just so you know. And I'll have to tell you, I'll tell you what my mom said about mine, but you say that, continue on because fuck your mom. No,
I
you're
mean,
not fat.
all those little things, talking about like just the little underlying comments are
Yeah.
constant. And then the constantly walking on the eggshells, appeasing her
Yes.
moods, all of those things. And that makes you become a completely self-aware.
Hmm.
I could walk into a room, and if you were off, I could sense it right away. I can sense
Yes.
vibes
That
because
impact.
you're at
Yeah.
such a young age, you're having to babysit your mom's moods.
Yeah.
All the way
Yeah.
up until just, I went no contact. I would call my mom every couple of days to babysit her moods, because when
Yeah.
is volcano going to erupt? That narcissistic rage, which is so scary. So it's a lot of little
Yeah.
things that make up a lot of big things.
Well, it's really interesting. One of the things that I remember my mom, because I think for narcissistic moms of daughters, it's always looks, right? So you can never outshine your
Hmm.
mom. And so my mom, she immigrated here from the Philippines. She had her hustle. She met my dad when he was in Vietnam. He was stationed in the Philippines. I respect her hustle. I wouldn't be here without her hustle. And so my mom's really tiny. She's, 4'11", maybe 4'10", so, soaking wet. She doesn't weigh a lot. And she had me, and I'm not that person. Like, I have very wide shoulders, and I have wider hips. And when I went through puberty, one of the things that happened is like I developed really fast. And that was always like a thing, like that I had to hide
Mm,
being a lot larger. I mean, I think I was in my late 30s when I actually got the right bra size,
mm,
because it was such a mind fuck to
yeah.
be bigger than anything that you actually were. And then once I started to understand, okay, human anatomy, I have to have big shoulders to carry all the stuff that I have. It's the way that it is. And I remember, like, my dad, I said this in another podcast, my dad doesn't have a really good record of picking women to be with. So my former stepmother, this pisses me off still to this day. My former stepmother is also a narcissist. His new girlfriend, I don't know if she's a narcissist, but I haven't met her yet. So I kind of feel like she might be because she keeps avoiding me, but that's a whole nother story. We'll see. My whole thing is I'm trying to get people to come back to listen so I can give them a report. So far, I don't know if she's a narcissist. So that's my tick there. But they were watching like a 60 minutes back in the 90s, maybe early 2000s. And my dad, my dad's wife at the time, my stepmother at the time, called me and said, "We just watched the 60 minutes about women who have like a lot of testosterone in their system, and they were shaped similar to you. So you should probably get that tested." And I was like, did my stepmom just say that to me? I was like, that fucking bitch. And so it took me a really long time to accept the way I look, right? Like you said, that your mom said what she said to you at a young age, and like you're nowhere near, like you shouldn't have any issues with that because you are like a beautiful, like healthy woman. And to me, it's always really interesting how that affects you. And I will say that I probably didn't really believe that I was someone who was pretty or good looking until my husband and I got together. And he, from a very unfiltered standpoint, would say how he felt about me, or, how I looked about things, or any of those things. And I think that is like, that's crazy. I mean, I got together with him in my late 30s. We've been together for, you know, 10 or 11 years now. We've been married for almost 4 years. That's crazy. Like I went through like a large portion of my adult life. Um, and I think that that is something that is really seen a lot. Like we see, and this is talked about a lot, where women who are narcissists who have daughters cause this kind of thing. But what do you think is really misunderstood about narcissistic moms, especially when they're saying things like, "But she's your mom"? So, like Miss Oprah and Mel Robbins said that we should get over it. There are moms. So, what do you think is misunderstood about narcissistic moms?
People, and this is one thing I get a lot when I post in my content
Mhm.
about it, is
Yeah.
like, she's your mom. And it's one of the most frustrating things for me because it triggers people. And I believe it
Yes.
triggers people because whether they have their own deep-seated issues with their own kids, or they're not
Mhm.
willing to self-reflect and take accountability for, their own stuff with their kids.
Mhm.
But I feel like you don't know unless you've experienced it. And that's what I always
Yeah.
have to come back to, is when I
Mhm.
when I comments, I say, to myself, I have to say, you know what, they unless they lived it, you're not going to know. Because
Right.
we always think of our, when you think of a mom, you think of, the relationship that we have with our kids. You think of
Yeah.
like our
Yeah.
whole life going like, I'm going to be
Yeah.
nothing like my mom. I'm going to make it my life mission to be nothing like her.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so there's this narcissistic rage that just it's demonic. And I know that's kind of a hard
Yes.
word,
No,
but
it's not.
to live that, and this is one thing that I tend to say is when people give me, kickback on my comments, I'll say, if your best friend came to you and
Mhm.
said that her boyfriend was abusing her, you would automatically say, get the heck away. So why
Yeah.
is it different? Because it's your mom, because you share
Right.
the same DNA.
Mhm.
It's abuse is abuse. And I used to
Abuse is
kind of deter from that word because,
Mhm.
and the whole word victim, like, yes, I am a victim of narcissistic
Yeah.
abuse. But it took me
Right.
forever to say that because I don't feel like I am a victim, but I've risen above to change the
Mhm.
cycle. But yes, you get that, and people get so angry when you say that. And I also get a lot of um, God says to honor your mom, and I get that all the time,
Yeah.
and I say, but I really don't think God would want me to subject myself to abuse, subject myself to abuse. And so you get a lot of that. And I think a lot of you just have to ignore and try to break it down. Like I said,
Mhm.
if someone came to you and said they're abusing you, you would say, get away. But
Right.
people in their head, they just think it's your mom, so you should accept it. It's not
Right.
acceptable no matter what.
Right. Well, and that I think is a really important thing because oftentimes a lot of people say, there, but the Bible says honor your parents or blah, 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 what there is. And there is, yes, if we are looking at it from that standpoint, when we're talking about what it says in the Bible, honor your father and your mother so that you may live longer in the land, our children obey their parents because in their parents is the Lord and for he is right. Okay, fine. But what God doesn't support, and I think that this is for all of the haters out there, is he does not support harm and abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to quote Bible verses in regards to that, the Lord examines the righteous, but the wicked, those who love violence, he hates with a passion. And those things, right, don't make friends with a hot tempered person. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these are things that I think that people, you have to examine because it's not the end all be all. When
Yeah.
meaning, like you can take it at its word, or you can take it in regard to the story. And the story is not Jesus loves parents that abuse. Like I, I have never read that story. And if you have one, please feel free to email it to me so I can read it and tell you all the ways that it's wrong. I think the other thing that is really important is that for survivors, and and I hate that word because I don't want to be like a victim of this whole thing because I think that from a very young age by birth, um, at birth, that it was exactly what your mom wanted, meaning, and I say that is about my mom, is creating this person that was going to think of them as the world because that's some of the narcissism, never
Mm-hmm.
question them,
Mm-hmm.
and they could do whatever they want with them. And, I had a post recently that talks about cult leaders and how that is very like
I
anytime I
just
watch
read
anything
that.
on a cult, right?
I
Anything
just
I
read it.
watch.
So
Yeah.
true.
It's
Yeah.
it is crazy. It is crazy in that you think, okay, you look at like leaders like the Nexium leader, which we're gonna have some Nexium members on so we could talk about this and talk about the parallel structures and how these cult leaders got them to like let go of everything that they thought in order to do this. And I think, some of it comes from building that trust in a really fucked up way. Some of it comes from who's the voice in your head that you hear. And for some people, like there's this scene, this episode, I think it's in 21 Jump Street, and maybe I'll put a clip in the video part, but there's this scene in the newer 21 Jump Street, and it's Channing Tatum, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they're like in a dream sequence. And in Channing Tatum's dream sequence, he's like in a little Lambo and he's like a bit like it's a big party, but in his partner sequence, it's like doom and gloom and volcanoes and all this stuff. And so the talk of the two is so different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me, like that's the difference of the talk between people in my head. The way they talk is doom and gloom and you suck and all that stuff. Where my husband's is like, he's all, this is the perfect like example of the two. And then I talk about, Will Trent and that one episode where Faith has her mom in her head. And so you've talked a little bit about voices in your head that sound like your mom. How do you as a person, or how would you recommend that you start to separate those voices? Like you actually start listening to the ones that are true, the ones that are, celebrating you.
It's something I still struggle with to today.
Mhm.
Trying to separate those voices, and I have a really hard time making decisions. And I think
Mhm,
because
mhm,
you are raised with a narcissistic mom, you everything is about them, and so
mhm.
it's almost like it's hard for you to develop your own identity and your own views on things. So I still struggle with that. I would say what grounds me is, talking to my brother who, lives it, has experienced
Mhm,
it,
mhm,
and
mhm,
also my boyfriend.
mhm,
They
mhm.
really is finding people that you trust to help ground you and say, okay, well, this is not true.
Mhm.
And just really trying to differentiate between that and what your reality and your truth is. And, making little decisions to help
Mhm.
you realize, okay, like I can do this. And I'm not talking about
Yeah.
a lot of times, like I can go and go to the store and, do whatever.
Yeah,
But
it's
when it
different.
comes
Yeah.
when it comes to content, just as an example, oh, should I go in this direction? Should I go in that direction? It's like, just pick a lane.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you're always questioning yourself.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think that's something that I still struggle with, and I'm working through with these voices, and even the voices, like I mentioned earlier, like you're fat. I still struggle with
Yeah.
that. Being
Yeah,
in this
and you're
industry,
not.
life,
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I would say, finding somebody where you can trust and help you, bounce things off with someone like you, for example.
Yeah, I think, that's one of the things for me that's really poignant is, um, that my husband is really good at that. Like, when he sees that I might be stuck in my head or he can hear it in my voice when I'm dealing with clients, I might get like this random text message that says, "Just breathe." Like, get that oxygen to your head. And I'm like, "Great. Okay, let me get back in that space." Because, the work that he and I do in our other business is very focused on like high um ticket or like high value decisions. And
Hmm.
we deal with like high conflict stuff, and we deal with like large things that happen, and we have to make plans based on that. So it is a constant high stake, high conflict position that we're in. And so it's always really, really crazy. And my nervous system is always on. And
Hmm.
I think some of that is because I still want that part of like that stress, that whatever came from my mom. And, for women who grew up in that kind of environment where, you talked about it earlier, your nervous system's always on, you're always scanning. Like, I'm always scanning anywhere I go to try to read faces to understand. And that definitely has benefited me in my work. But what did that look like for you personally? Like, for me, I know what it looked like, but for you personally, what does that look like?
For scanning everything, you're
Yeah.
saying.
Or scanning, or like always being on, like your nervous system's like always on. So what does that look like for you?
Well, I will say, just like you had said, it made me a very effective leader in my
Yeah.
workplace. With you,
Hmm.
like like you said, high stake decisions.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
it, but when it comes to my own personal life, I would say it's still something I struggle with as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
one of those things where you um your nervous system is like, I haven't had anxiety like my whole life. So that's
Hmm.
something that, I've gotten help with. And my nervous system, like I said, like going scanning, you scan people, you're always on, and it does get exhausting sometimes. You
Hmm.
do kind
Hmm.
of have superpower in a sense,
Hmm.
because I can
Yes.
sense, like, something's going on with my sons or with my boyfriend, or just even sometimes random strangers. You can tell, like, okay, something's
Yeah.
off, because
Yeah.
you are constantly on. My boyfriend will say, you always overthink. You think overthink everything. I'm like, but that's how I was trained.
Yeah.
So it is something that I feel like is a good thing, but also it can be exhausting, in a lot of.
Yes. Well, and it's really interesting because, like, one of the things that has brought more of this up for me is perimenopause. Like,
Hmm.
I probably had experienced anxiety and panic attacks, but I never knew what they were.
Hmm.
And like, I don't remember them, but I'm assuming because my mom's a psycho, I probably did. And so my first panic attack was a couple years ago, and I haven't had one until just recently for no reason. But I was like, what is this feeling? Like,
Yeah.
what is going on? Why do I feel like the walls are closing in? And I, vocalize it to my husband, and he's like, it's okay. Because we were also in the midst of COVID. So, like, we were also inside all the time, all the things. And then I realized that after looking up a lot of the stuff, that when perimenopause hits, there's certain things that start to happen. and anxiety can start showing up. And for me, that was a real interesting thing. And I remember just recently talking to my daughter about something, and she's all, Mom, your messaging, why are you crashing out? Like, I was asking her a bunch of questions and I wouldn't like let it go. And I was like, I'm trying to get information because I'm trying to plan something. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little anxious. And then I said sorry to her. And I said, I know that you have anxiety. I can't believe that, like, I don't know how you handle all this. And my daughter said, You've been like this all my life. And I was like, what are you talking about? And like, even right now, like, I just grabbed my little thing to get my little squishy axolotl because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm messing with my fingers. But there are things that I didn't even realize because we didn't have words for them. So now I'm like, okay, this makes more sense. Like, of course, maybe then when that was happening, I was feeling that. Or maybe when I was like overthinking something in my room to go ask my mom about,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that was anxiety. Like, I don't know, but it seems like it could be. And so that I think is crazy. Like,
You don't realize when you're younger what it is. Like you said, it's these little
right.
things. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until I my son that I realized, okay, I have really bad anxiety. But I
Yeah.
want to last year, I want to say not this last Christmas, but the Christmas before, right around October, I was having really bad panic attacks. Like it's so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
I had anxiety my whole life, but this when you have a panic attack, it feels like you need to call 911. I mean, it feels like you're having
Yes.
a really
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and I got to the
Yeah.
point where it was so bad, like I had to have a brain scan. I had like I
Crazy.
wore a heart
Yeah.
monitor.
Palpitations. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the worst feeling ever. And that's one thing too about I think something I realized or discovered recently about growing up the way that we did
Hmm.
is, my mom, it's always about them, right? So when I'm
Yes.
sick or there's something going on with me, I'm very
Yep.
much I don't want to bother anybody.
Quiet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
quiet. And like my son used to work in the ER. He was an ER
Mm-hmm.
tech, and he was home at one point when I was having a panic attack in the middle of the night. It's those nocturnal ones that you're
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you feel like you're dying. And
Yeah.
it took me so long to get him and just be like, I'm having a panic because he's experienced a lot working in the ER, and so he said,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
we put ourselves such on the back burner
It's
and
like
so
yeah,
yeah,
we're so
because
far.
yeah, because we're so used to doing that our whole
Yeah.
lives. I
Yeah.
hesitate to get my own self help, you know?
Yeah. It was so interesting. Like I said, it's been a while since I experienced that first panic attack. And I was lying down on the couch, like this last week. And I can't remember. I had a couple of heavy clients. And usually on those days, I just crash out for like
Hmm.
a little bit. And so I was on the couch and my husband was working downstairs in the office. And he said, Are you okay? Because he could hear my breathing.
Mm,
Like, I heard the music turn down and then he's like, Are you okay? And I said, I think I'm having a panic attack again. And I had like my pillow on top of me trying to weigh me down. Like, I was doing all these things that I probably did when I was little too. And I had
yeah.
my blanket and I was like squishing my thing. He's like, Do you have your squishy? And I do. I said, I do have my squishy. And his head is flat. And he was like, Okay, let me go. I'm going to open windows. Like, let's open up. Let's get some fresh air circulating. And I think that like, I never, ever, ever would have told him if he didn't ask me. I would have
Yeah.
just silently suffered through it. And I think that really I think that's a really fucked up place to be. Like, that a parent would make their kid feel like that. Like, my daughter, if she's not feeling well, she's 30, but she still messages me and says, Mom, I have a sore throat and I think I have a fever and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, do you have these things at home? Go take them. And she's like, okay. And then she's fine. And then, of course, I'm worried about her,
Hmm.
but she keeps in touch and all that stuff. Like, what? Like, I always think, like, why would any parent want their kids to suffer that much? And that's for me when I really started to say, okay, I, as an adult, need to shift my boundaries because I'm the only one who's going to be around for my daughter. And you say some really direct things when you talk about accountability and apologies. And what really shifted for you around boundaries with your mom and did say, okay, this is it, no contact?
I always had boundaries. It was just uh, the situation where if I was never safe to express them. So I
Mm-hmm.
grew up very young, knowing has strong justice to my core. Like
Mm-hmm.
always, if there's someone being mean to someone else, I'm that person
Yes.
to
Yeah.
say something. And
Yes.
because you have such a strong justice system, and I think that there were times in my life, and this is when I was going over, some questions. I was thinking
Yeah.
this is very interesting dynamic to talk about and bring up because I started seeing things, and I am
Mm-hmm.
seeing this where there were times in my life where with my mom I had boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and one example, and it was able to express them, and it was always under the nuance of control. So one
Yes.
example is I was married, and my oldest son, he was probably about 3 or 4, and he was sitting
Mm-hmm.
on the couch. My mom was over for Christmas. She was visiting us,
Mm-hmm.
and kids are kids, right? He's a
Yeah.
toddler, and
Yeah.
he's sitting on the stairs, and my mom went to go sit next to me. Says, "Don't sit next to me, Grandma. I don't want you sitting next to me." Well, my mom got upset, and she went into the other room, and I was kind of doing something, and I went and I saw her. I saw it was in my office, and I saw my son, crawling around on the ground. He had like a little necklace on. He's like, "Grandma, look, Grandma, look." And I observed from afar. My mom didn't know I was watching. She was ignoring my son, like literally ignoring him. She was upset because he said,
Yeah.
"Don't,
Right.
I don't," and it's just like narcissists think that little kids should act like adults and bow down to them. So I was livid. I said, "Get the F out of my house."
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't, so I always had those boundaries, but later on the control shifted. Like when I became a single mom and I
Mm-hmm.
depended on
Mm-hmm.
her for, watching the kids or
Yeah. Yeah.
the things where I became completely frozen. I
Mm-hmm.
was not allowed to say anything. I never really had a voice growing up. I mean, there were times where, yeah, when you're in my house, you're not gonna, you're never gonna treat my son like that.
Yeah.
Um, but it wasn't until later, for example, like they bought a house, I rented from them. If
Mm-hmm.
I opened my mouth later on when my kids were in high school,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
they did. They sold the house from underneath me. They've done things like that. Like the day I move in, oh, we need to sell. Like literally the day I move in, they did this to me. And so it's always about control, up until even being 51. I want to say a few months before I went no contact with my mom, I
Mm-hmm.
had said to her, I said, I am, there is something that she had said that was really hurtful to me.
Yeah.
And I was telling her about it and thinking in my head, dumb, being dumb, thinking, oh, maybe she's gotten a little better. You always think that.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing she said was, how do you think I feel? So completely negated anything that I said and made me feel
Right.
worse. Made me feel like shit for even bringing it up. But so the boundaries have always been there. It's
Yeah.
been through control to where I've been able to feel like, so I have kept my mouth shut for a lot of things for
Yeah.
so many years.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so and the boundary now is that um, I don't talk to her. So
Yeah.
I'm, you know,
Yeah. Well, and what do you think was harder for you? Setting that boundary or holding it when, like, I know for a lot of my clients, they're like, okay, I'm done. I'm setting the boundary. And then holding it is like when I get in trouble still now, I feel like I'm on fire. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And a lot of my clients feel like that in this space where they're like, okay, boundary set. I'm not talking to you anymore. No contact. And then when they start holding it and the narcissist, their mom just starts trying to kick that door down and it's constant. So what do you think for you or for people is harder, either setting that boundary or holding it when that guilt starts to kick in?
it's interesting. And maybe I'm so numb. I don't really feel the guilt, and that I might be a terrible person for saying that.
You're
I mean,
not. You're not.
maybe right now, but my mom is notorious for, and I think this is typical, where she will do something that causes a big
Hmm.
eruption, But
Mm-hmm.
then a year will go by, and then out of
Mm-hmm.
the blue, this happened like 5 times. Out of the blue, she'll text me, "Hey, we have a car for so and so."
Yep.
Um,
The
and
the
all of a sudden,
gift, the
there's
dangle.
always
Yeah.
the carrot, yeah. And
Yeah.
then it's, and I've had a conversation. Both my sons know how their grandma is, and I said, "Hey, if
Yeah.
if is this something you want to do? It comes with strings attached. It always does."
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
one said no one time, and I never heard it. I never stopped hearing about it. But one said yes, and it, and then you have that contact again, and then it's like nothing ever happened. And
Mm-hmm.
this is
Hmm.
constant, like every couple years kind of a thing where something erupts. And
Right.
this time it was so bad. And I don't think I say it out loud or whatever, I haven't like really talked about it openly about this last thing that happened. But basically, I mean, I can talk about it, but I had moved to Texas, and
Mm-hmm.
when I was
Mm-hmm.
there, I sold my house,
Mm-hmm.
moved to Texas, started a new career,
Mm-hmm.
and during that time, my mom got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, you have this hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my son was back home. He was at the age where he didn't want to come with me. My oldest,
Mm-hmm.
my youngest was in the military. So my mom was like, we really are getting older. We would like you to come here. So come stay with us. They had like an in-laws unit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will go look because our dream was to get some land and build homes on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so when you come back, I want you, right when you get back from Texas, I want you to go search from some land. Probably a month after I got home, again, it's typical. I should know better
Yeah.
by now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But
My
that's
mom
okay.
said, we're not doing that now. So again, uprooting, this is like the third time I've done this. Like, I've
Yeah.
uprooted my career, my, things, came back. Now I'm there under their roof. Okay.
Yep.
Started a new job, but then I got laid off. Well, up
Mm-hmm.
until a few months, I met my boyfriend, and I was
Hey.
single for months. I met my boyfriend, and I
Yeah.
started spending time at his place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mom got jealous of that, I think, my relationship with him and not giving her all the attention, but I
She
would
wanted
still,
7. She wanted 7. That's why she wanted from 6. She wanted her 7. So that's the jealousy part.
yeah. And this is such an interesting story because I noticed that, and the whole reason was like, I'm there to take care of them. My mom had
Yeah.
cancer. I'm getting
Yeah.
older. And that was the talk like, okay, I'm here. And when I would be over staying with my boyfriend, I would call, hey, does
Yeah.
grandma
Check
need
in.
anything?
Yeah.
You know, I'm literally 2 miles away. Like
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
going on? So I was still there to be very helpful and
Mm-hmm.
anything that they need. In fact, 2 days before they did this thing, which I'm going to say, my stepdad called me and he said, hey, can you go check on grandma? She's, I can't get a hold of her. Yes, I'm there. Run over there. Well, I had, it's interesting. And I'm not sure if you felt this with your mom, but you kind of get this feeling like you start kind of like, the shit's going to hit the fan. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can sense it. You can almost taste it. And
Mm-hmm.
I told my boyfriend, I said, I have this feeling that I need to be home more often. I just
Mm-hmm.
did. And so
Mm-hmm.
I went home, I had a conversation with my mom. I said, hey, I know I've been over at my boyfriend's a lot. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm always here if you need anything, but I'm going to be around, more. And she's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, she brought over a calendar. And this is so interesting. This just tells you a lot. She brought over a calendar, and I noticed on her calendar, she writes everything on a calendar. It said joy here, joy gone, joy here, joy gone. And I was like, what's that, Mom? And she said, oh, it's I thought you were going on out of town those days. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think much of it at the time. Well, um, I had gone over to Jake's. There's something had happened. I asked if I could keep something in the freezer, and my mom was
Mm-hmm.
like, of course, no problem. Because I had a fridge in the. I know this is a lot, but
No,
it's just typical.
no, it's important. Yeah.
But I had a freezer close to like the in-laws unit, but to go
Mm-hmm.
and make a shake or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I had to, so I asked if I just keep a couple things in there. Well, I came
Yeah.
home one day and it was moved. And so I
Mm-hmm.
went in and I asked him, I said, hey, we just had a conversation. I asked my mom, she's like, no problem. And it was moved. And so I expressed, God forbid, I expressed that I was frustrated. I said, well, I thought we just had a conversation that I could,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
in here or whatever. But you can't do that with a narcissistic mom. So I was
Mm-mm.
just kind of like, okay, so I went in my room and And I went over to my boyfriend's, and the next morning they put a sign on my unit that said you have 30 days to leave. So knowing that I'm laid off, I'm not working, they don't care, and then it turned into they sent my son some text because my son reached out to them and why would you guys do this? Like she came out there to take care of you guys. She's been there for you. And they
Mm-hmm.
said, your mom's been here 21 days out of the last 6 months. So they were counting, the calendar that I showed you, they were counting the
Yeah.
days there. So anyway, after that, I was like, I'm done, because they basically left me homeless to
Yeah.
the point where it's like, but they don't care. Like I can't imagine ever doing that to my kids. So uprooting my own
No.
life,
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
take care of them. And because I'm not around and I'm like enjoying spending time with my boyfriend, it's like, we're just going to do this to you. Like it just, you can't even wrap your mind around it.
I'm so sorry. Like that's so fucked up. Like, and here's always the kicker. They don't even have the balls to fucking tell you.
Well, that's the
They don't
thing is
even fucking know.
conversation.
Like, what
There was
the
no
hell?
conversation. It's like it could be like, hey, you're spending time with your boyfriends more often. Do you, it's like I'm here to help take care of you guys. Like that. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't necessarily want to be around like my parents. Like it's not
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
funnest. I've been on my own since
Yeah.
I was years old, but I uprooted myself to come and help take care of you guys as you're getting old. And that was
Hmm.
kind of always our conversation is, and I think, when you talk about the guilt piece, the guilt I feel is because my brother was not in the picture anymore, and I was the only daughter,
Yeah.
person left to
Yeah.
kind of take care of them as they get up and get older.
Yep.
But after that, I'm like, you know what, you got it. That's it. I mean,
Yeah. You fuck around and find out. Like that's really
yeah.
what because I know that like, so I'm an only child
Hmm.
and, but with both my parents, they, you know, my dad, like I said, my dad was never abusive and I love my dad to death. And he had a stroke probably, I think it's been about 20, probably more than that, 25 years ago. And with that, he's kind of stuck in his teenage brain.
Hmm.
And that's fair. So there's a lot of selfishness that comes with that. But I like give him a lot of space. But he's like up north from me, like, and he lives on his own and he does a lot of stuff that, and I think that's great. And but I'm the only child for him, and I'm the only child for my mom. She's remarried. I think she's in Arizona the last time I knew. And someone recently asked me, like, well, what are you gonna do when she like gets terminally ill or like sick? I said, let her cook. I don't fucking care. She didn't care about me. And I
Yeah.
don't say that out of like anything other than trying to protect myself. I know that if she even like moved out to where I am and was in a home, let's say best case scenario, I know that I would lose myself, like the person who I am now, because there would be no boundaries. My phone would be ringing off the hook. There would be, 20,000 things that are wrong. And I think that like and if you don't I think for me, if you don't understand that, fuck you. Like, not everybody has a really great upbringing, and that's okay. And we give grace for that. If you can't give grace for the fact that my mom is very mentally ill and she has treated me like a piece of shit and I will not tolerate it anymore, fuck you. And I don't need you in my life. Like, I really, and that's that, there's
I,
that. And I think, go ahead.
I think I need to get there because
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I mean, like I still, when people say things, it still will bother me where you are like,
Yeah.
like, fuck you. Like
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
I still feel like, okay, well, you don't understand because, and I try to justify it. Like people go,
Yeah. Yeah.
tools, like, well, I mean, my mom had as much tools as I had, to
Yeah.
try to break this
My mom
cycle. And
had more tools than I had. She had my grandparents there helping her.
yeah,
So mine is like, and I get that, and I get not. Whenever I talk to my clients, I said not everyone is going to be in this space that I am, and I say this because coming around full circle for me, my husband, our kids. this life that we have grown and developed together. My husband, we're doing a little project where we're putting like a bunch of pictures up in a really sprawled wall, and all the pictures are like downstairs because we're figuring out what to print. And I just looked at it and I like almost started crying because I was like, this is a life that I deserve. This is a life my mom never wants me to have, and she will ruin it. She will 100% ruin it by a
Yep.
thousand things. And I
Yep.
think for me, especially like for anyone who's under the age of 35 who's listening to this, once you get into this like middle life lens, there is like this fuck you attitude where like I don't care what you think of me. Let me take a step back. I do care what people think of me. I think about my kids, I think about my husband, I think about my amazing mother-in-law and what they think of me. Definitely. But like a random stranger off the street that I used to care about, I'm like, whatever. And I think that healing for me, especially, and I forget how old I am all the time because like 49 came up real quick. And
Mhm.
um, I think that it shows up a lot differently for me than it did even just 10 years ago. And I don't think that has anything to do with my environment. I think it has to do with my age. The time that I ever miss my mom is when I think about perimenopause. I think for her, when she hit perimenopause and all of this stuff started happening, for her, she got crazier. She got more controlling. She got more unstable, all of the things. And she didn't talk about it. And that's fine. For me, when perimenopause showed up, I was really like, I talked a lot about it because, excuse me, like that. It's because of perimenopause, like there's certain things that happen. And so, how for you does this healing from your crazy ass mom show up differently, in your aging from like 40 to now your 50s? And I've been told that once you hit 50, it's like amazing. So I'm like, my fingers are crossed and I'm like, can't wait. So how is it showing up differently for you?
Well, I think you have a lot of life experience when you get to 50.
Yes. Hmm.
A lot. And you are able to start to see through the fog a little bit. So you start to see
Yes.
a little bit more clear. You have so much life experience, like I said, and you are able to kind of see things for what it is. And like you said, when you hit perimenopause, you're just kind of like, you don't give a crap anymore. You're
No.
just,
No. Yeah.
you just have no, it, I mean, I have a filter. I've really
Yeah,
learned
I
in
do have a
my life
filter.
to
Yeah.
have the filter and to, I mean, there's times where I haven't, and I've worked really hard on that.
Yes.
But I do, I think there are things where it's just like, I can pick and choose. Like if I
Yes. Yeah.
say something, I will say it. But there's a lot of things
Yeah.
I can do. And I think when you get to, you can become unapologetic too. Like, yes, there's some things
Yeah.
about my life that people hit. It kind of stings a little bit, but it's because I think a lot of people just try to trigger you too. And so you have to look at
Mhm.
the context and realize when mean people hurt people, like,
Yes.
rather than, and I always look at the place it's coming from. Okay, they
Mhm.
are obviously something is touching deep within them. But yeah, I kind of just feel like, unapologetic, when you get
Yeah.
to an age where you're just like,
Yeah.
F it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and that I really like. I love being this age because, like you said, there's like this wisdom that comes as you get older, and it really it goes by fast. It's in a blink of the eye. Like I still think of my daughter as like a 7-year-old waking me up saying, "Look, I'm Woody. Howdy, 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 howdy." From like Toy Story. Like I still think that she is, and she's 30 and she lives on her own. And I'm like, okay, how did that ever happen? And so I think there's like a lot that I appreciate now more. And my peace is one of them, understanding and that peace of like, of unapologetically being who I am, not wanting to hurt people, which is different, right? Than what our moms were. Like their intent was to hurt.
Yes.
And I think that, perimenopause, like it is the devil, but man, my like psyche is totally different. And
Hmm.
that's one of the things that I think like one of the first things I saw was you like mentioning something about perimenopause um in your Instagram, and then I started following you because one of the things I really liked was that you blend that like fitness, perimenopause, and healing all together. So how did you connect those all together for you? Like what was like, okay, I got a niche, here it is.
I think it happened organically.
Mm-hmm,
Fitness has been my background. I mean, since I was fresh out of high school,
mm-hmm,
I started getting into teaching
mm-hmm.
right away. And I've been in the fitness industry for 30 years, 35
Oh
years.
wow, okay.
It's all
Mm-hmm,
that I know, and really built my career around that up until COVID. And then I kind of pivoted a little bit, got into other areas where I still used my fitness background, and then completely went into a completely different industry for a couple years.
mm-hmm,
Um, but I think that moving my body when I was younger was
mm-hmm.
about something that I could have control over, and maybe the
Mm-hmm,
with the background with my mom saying that I was fat and being able to take control over that,
mm-hmm,
as well as the, perimenopause, something that I'm experiencing going through, going to the doctors, talking about what we go through when we're not validated and we're told, I
mm-hmm.
literally had doctors tell me like, there's no such thing as perimenopause.
Oh my God, they suck. Like, let me get on this little shtick really quick. Women, don't let any doctor tell you there's no such thing as perimenopause. There's shit that happens, like you get frozen shoulder, you get a panic
I have that
attack,
now.
right? Your hair starts like thinning out. You gain a little bit of weight. It's which is not a bad thing. There's all these things that can be attributed to your hormones fluctuating. And hormones are a powerful thing. Hormones help you make a baby. Hormones are really powerful. So fuck that doctor. Fuck any doctor that tells you that you're not going through it because like like for me it reminds me of your mom. Like
Hmm.
what are you talking about? I'm going through this. Like I remember when I got frozen shoulder and I was like, what is this? Like what the hell? Fuck
Yeah,
them. Sorry, let me get off my soapbox. Stepping down
absolutely.
off of it.
Yeah.
Your content is like super direct and you mentioned how you've gotten some pushback saying some of the things that you've said out loud. So and also that you're kind of like you try to get to explain to them. So what made you decide to stop softening your message for those people?
I truly believe that it comes to not having a voice growing up,
Mhm.
to feeling like finally empowered, especially with going no contact with my mom, like I had mentioned earlier, feeling like I can actually finally, I'm free to talk about it. I'm
Yes.
free. And it does feel so freeing in that feeling like, okay, and the other piece to it is also why I'm able to really speak openly is because I am not working for corporate. I mean, being
Yes.
in the office is a huge part of it too, because I had to be, being in the position that I was in, I had to be very
Mhm.
careful about what I posted. And there were so many stipulations on what you could talk about, what you couldn't, and things like that. And then, of course, being in a leadership position and people
Mhm.
looking at you a different way. And so I think that really opened up a lot for me being able to just be like, hey, this is what it is. This is what I
Yeah.
experienced.
Mhm.
And being very, and that's, the point of my content is to be really raw and open and not sugarcoat anything.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's kind of what I lead with.
Well, I think, for a little while that leadership was changing for a little bit, and that honesty and that pure honesty was something that was really, really important. I think we're going to get back there too again. I don't know when, but I know that there was an authenticity that a lot of people valued.
Mm,
And there was like diversity of thought and all of those things that are really, really important with businesses that want to be successful. I look
yeah.
at places like, and I'm not, let me make sure that this is clear. I'm not sponsored by Costco, but let me tell you that Costco is like a super diverse organization. They pay a living wage, they do all these things. They seem expensive because you're buying in bulk, but
Hmm.
you're saving money and they treat those who work for them in all levels of corporate, whether you are checking people out, you're checking people's membership to social media, all those things really, really well. And that I think that there are going to be more businesses like that so that we can continue talking shit about our moms, right? Like
Yeah.
that to me is like really important because I talk about this often about how when you show up in a corporate world, and I know this because of our experiences with our other clients, is that your traumas don't leave you.
Hmm.
So, when you're healing, when someone might be healing, and it might be a very like open thing, they are, they show up at work still healing.
Hmm.
Like they can't just like, it's severance time, like the TV show, I'm going to turn it off and download my work brain. I think that that is not really what it's like. And if those of you who've watched Severance know that even if you downloaded your work brain, you often start to think, what does your personal life look like? Right. And so I think that that is a really big thing. And for me, I know what my healing looks like day to day. Um, I probably could do better. I probably could stop cursing about people driving around the high school where I pick up my kids inappropriately, but that's okay. But what does highlight like healing really look like for you day to day? Like when do you like need to take a tick or what does it look like and for you?
It's something I work on every day for sure. I think that it looks like being gentle with myself and listening to my body, getting having Hashimoto's, it's something that I've had
Mm,
to pay attention to, dealing with the hypothyroidism part of it as well, and making sure that I'm eating
mhm.
right and I'm getting the exercise that I need. It's interesting that they say, I've recently seen that they say you get Hashimoto's when you're not allowed to speak, which I thought was really
Yes.
interesting because I've never, like I said, that piece of I've never had a voice. And so here I have this Hashimoto's diagnosis. And so, every day to me looks like just giving my body what it needs instead of trying to control it so much like I have in my past through fitness
Mhm,
and making
mhm,
sure
mhm.
I'm a certain size and I, fit into these certain size jeans. And actually, like you had mentioned earlier, actually, buying the size that's maybe a couple sizes
Yeah,
bigger and being okay
because
with
it's
that because
comfy. Well, let me tell you, girls, like when you wear a size a couple like sizes bigger, it does make you look smaller, just so you know. But it's
yeah,
so much more comfortable. Like
right.
so much more. I like it's just so much more comfortable. So the size is bigger if you need to. One of the things I want to like highlight, and I think, do I have it here? I have the book here, and I'm gonna try to take this out without everything falling down. So Gaber Matt um, has this book. It's called The Myth of Normal, and he talks a lot about trauma and how trauma shapes your body. And autoimmune disorders, some like Hashimoto's, really come from the space of your nervous system just being a freaking wreck. This is a really, really good book to read, and it goes over how um, ACEs, so adverse early childhood experiences, really are interconnected with your health. And
Hmm.
so people who score high off that, and you don't want to know my score, which is culminated with being a person of color, being at below the middle class poverty line, and having a crazy mom, those things kind of throw you off. And that instability that your mom kind of instilled in you, like it's the gift that keeps on giving in regards to certain things. And that's one of the things we talked a lot about. I On my first episode, I had Kimberly Weeks on, and she and I actually had a meeting this morning. We were chatting about some stuff. And one of the things that I took away from that is the spoon theory. And I had heard the spoon theory before and researched it, but she really like whittled it down to, I knew if I had no spoons that I would be incapacitated because she has MS. And I knew that if I decided to engage with someone on social media and call them a jackass, that took two spoons. Or if I was going to argue with my kids about going and doing their homework an hour earlier than they wanted to, that would take three spoons. And so she manages her time, and I don't know if she does now, or her energy level based off of those spoons. And that's something that I think is really important. And as we work with leaders, my husband and I, in our work there, in the relationship recovery work that we do around narcissistic abuse, that is something like making it very a bite size so people understand, like, okay, today I have 15 spoons. But as you continue to heal, your spoon, like allotment of spoons increases. And as a part of that, like your healing like never ends. So you will get more spoons. And so my question for you, as we like talk about all this medical stuff, about the stress of our nervous systems, about autoimmune disorders, don't get me started on shingles, because shingles, and like now that we're older, there is that possibility. But if you get shingles younger, which I did, as a result of that stress, it's that autoimmune, your autoimmune like system just gets out of whack when your nervous system is. But do you feel like there's ever an end to your healing? Or is it more like an integration process where it keeps happening and you're healing every single day?
I think it's never ending. I think it's
Hmm.
something that I'm going to be healing every day.
Hmm. Hmm.
Definitely, it's definitely going to be an integration process for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that there's that having a narcissistic mom is something that is, unfortunately stays with you forever because it's ingrained in you in such a young age
Hmm.
that I mean, I'm 51 years old, and I
Hmm.
think that the piece of that is finally removing myself over the last 3 or 4 months and starting to see through the fog. That's the starting healing process for me. And, I would love to say that maybe one day I would be completely healed, but I think, and
Hmm.
I've made so much progress from,
Yeah.
when my kids were young that I'm really proud of.
Hmm.
But I do see that there are a lot of things that I'm still discovering about myself. And I think
Hmm.
that those are
Hmm.
all things that are just something I'm going to strive to work through every single day.
Well, and I think that for me, like that's a really, really important thing. And what I would love is for someone who is listening, who thinks that their mom might be a narcissist and or just figured out that she is. What's something that you might want them to know, in regards to their healing or their mom being a narcissist?
I believe the main thing I would want them to know is that they're not alone. That's the
Hmm.
whole reason
Hmm.
why I started talking about it through my content is it's just for others to have a voice to put what they're feeling through, have a voice to it, put a voice to it and realize that's what I'm dealing with. Because when I went through it,
Hmm.
I didn't know anybody that had experienced this. I felt alone until I started talking about it. And
Hmm.
people gave comments like, oh my gosh, do we have the same mom? And I,
Yeah.
I have such this like motherly side to me that when I
Mhm.
have people, they'll tell me some of their experiences and I just want to give them a hug. And I
Yes.
respond a lot with
Yeah.
that, sending you a hug, because I
Yeah.
would love to see everyone's moms that are dealing
Yeah.
with this have the
Yeah.
mom they should have and deserved.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I definitely say that, they're not alone because you do feel so alone in this. When you're
Mhm.
growing up, you're thinking, like, do all moms teach
Yeah.
or treat their kids like this? And you grow up and you realize, no, they don't.
No,
In
no. It's yeah.
in fact, I was having a conversation with one of my best friends the other day. She does my hair, and I was telling her a little bit
Which
because I
looks
have,
wonderful, by the way. I
oh,
gotta go
thank
get
you.
mine done.
I was telling her mom passed away a couple years ago, and her mom was
Mhm.
like sunshine. She was one of
Mhm.
those moms that we all dreamed to have.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
I was telling her she's like, "How are things going?" And I said, "Well, gosh, you know what? My parents actually had the audacity to send me a text saying Happy Valentine's Day and hope we were doing." I'm thinking like, how? And they're since blocked, but after that text. I'm like, you guys literally did this to me, and now you're sending. It's just typical, right? So I was telling her this, and she started crying, and
Oh,
I said to her, like, oh my gosh, did I say something? And I'm so sorry. Like, did I say something? And she goes, no, I just can't believe that you have never been able to experience
mhm.
how it is to have a loving mother. And
Yeah.
she's told crying, like, I'm okay, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah.
Mother's Day is coming up, right? And it's like people don't
Yeah.
understand, like when you, yeah, like when I was still in contact, go pick out a card, and it
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
like a card that says "Have a good day." You know what I mean? Because
I
you don't have those warm
know.
and mushy feelings towards your mom that most
Yeah.
people do, right?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think that those are, all things that I think that I would just to have a voice to it.
Yeah. It's really, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about, so I support a group of like 8,000 women on Facebook who have narcissistic moms. And so we do a book club, which is what I'm doing next after this. And um, one of the women in there, she calls her mom by her first name, and she was saying, we have chosen moms. And I had never really thought of it like that. And I would have to say, like, my mother in law is like the chosen motherly figure that I have. And even more so, her mom, who's my grandmother in law, because there's like this, when I see my grandmother in law look at my husband, there is this like sense of unconditional love that, of
Mm,
course, he turned out the way that he did. Like, of
yeah.
course, he is a stable, emotionally in touch, brilliant man because his grandmother and it was a group effort. His grandmother, his mom, his dad, and his stepdad, like all were there at very poignant times and created this person. Of course, this is what healthy looks like. And like, I think that if that's not something that you have, like a very similarly, like I want to give you a hug and I'm sorry. And you can still make that for yourself because you can have a chosen family. Like this woman that I was alluding to, her next door neighbor is an elderly woman, and that's her chosen mom. And she talks about that all the time in our group. And I think that is a really beautiful thing. And I have so enjoyed talking with you. We are going to put all of Joy's information, her Instagram, her TikTok, how you can get a hold of her. If you need some like fitness advice, you can hire her. I'll tell you what her rates are. They're really expensive, but totally worth it. Um, and we'll put the link to this book for sure by Gabriel Mate in there because I think this is really important and probably a little article about ACEs so you can find out for those of you who are, repairing yourself through your journey with your narcissistic mom and if you ever want to have kids because I think that that's really important. And I will put my little axolotl, my little
Yeah.
squishy on there so that you all can find him. I bought one for my grandmother-in-law, and she like squishes the heck out of it too. She uses it for like hand strength, but every time I come over, I put it in, and she just her cute little hand, she squishes it. So thank you so much, Joy. I've really enjoyed having this conversation, and you will definitely be back again. We'll definitely talk some more, talk about your journey, and I appreciate you sharing everything, and I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of
Appreciate it.
course.
Joy, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story so openly. I know this is going to resonate with so many people. And if this episode hits home, make sure you follow, like, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, if you're in the space of choosing yourself and breaking the cycle, I see you. Thank you for listening to the Beyond Mommy Dearest podcast. You're not broken, you adapted. Healing from a narcissistic mother is real, possible, and you never have to do it with shame. I'm your host, Nolani Pearl Hernandez, and until next time, take gentle care of yourself.
Your skin is a part of your nervous system, and taking care of it is essential to overall balance. Our products are specifically formulated to nourish your skin and bring it closer to homeostasis with every use. Start feeling better in your body today with the Happy Cannabis.